Lovely tinkly, jingly jangly nature to that one there. Hi, I'm Burt from SampleLibraryReview.com. Today we're going to be checking out 8Dio's Emotional Guitar Bundle. Here they're giving us a unique take on a sampled guitar library, with a focus that is more about how the sound feels as opposed to playing a particular articulation. Almost 2 years in development, the bundle collection includes all 3 of the Emotional Guitar series, at a considerable saving. Together they cover a wide variety of playing styles across 32 different emotions, deriving from the work of psychologist Robert Plutchik, and they can all be mixed and matched to taste. The Emotional Guitar Bundle downloads at about 8GB, compressed down from 17GB of original content. They're made up of 48K 24-bit stereo WAV samples, deriving from one player with a variety of guitars and various pedals, amps and other processing combinations. The bundle version comprises 3 separate products: the pads, multi-samples and the rhythms, and they're also available separately. Each product is divided into 32 articulations that correspond to emotions on Plutchik's wheel. The full version of the Contact is required, and the bundle normally sells for $298. We'll start by looking at the pads. They're divided into 2 sections across the alphabet. And we'll start with Anticipation. I'll play a little bit of kind of ad-libbing and see how it goes, give you an idea of the flavour of this library. So as you can see, each pad is actually placed across the keyboard, all in the same key of C. Most of them are root notes, others have slight kind of harmonic nature to them. This is quite unusual if you're used to playing with a normal synthesizer and pads on a synth, where you'd commonly play kind of chords. It doesn't work quite that way for this. The best way of doing it, if you did want to change the pitch, just use a tune knob here. There's also a stretch function, which I'll look at a little bit later. I'll play a few more examples across the range of emotions in this section to give you an idea about the scope and the various different sounds you can get from this library. So anger fairly lives up to its name there, I think. Let's try Disapproval. I'll play some just single notes so you can get an idea about how it sounds just with the bass pads, and then, like I do with Anticipation and Anger there, I'll layer a few more in to see how it can be used to evolve into this pad that morphs and changes over time. what I like about it is each sound itself does evolve over quite a few seconds. By the time you then fade one in, fade another one out, you can create this really cool kind of drone effect. So it doesn't work quite as well as you would conventionally use pads for. However, there is a way of pitching it across all the keys. So let's quickly zip to another one. Let's try Admiration here. I'll find a cool sound first. Let's say we love that sound, that's really cool, but we want to be able to play it across all the keys. Simply hit that sound. The last sound that you chose will then be able to be stretched. And the yellow key here will tell you the pitch you just played. And from there, we've got our chromatic placement. For me, it doesn't sound quite as exciting as when we can kind of layer the different ones up, but it does give that flexibility within composing across, chord sequences, etc., which otherwise will be slightly difficult to do. But I think the strength of this library, having played with that a little bit before this little walkthrough, is that it works really well for kind of drones and just creating a basic vibe. So another cool little function we have with it is we can stack different emotions, which is a little bit like this. So we'll go with amazement as one of them. Hit the stack button. Everything gets greyed out, and then we can kind of combine amazement with something else. So we combine amazement with awe. They're in similar kind of emotional groups as well, them two. But if we then say offset it with disgust, and then all three sounds will get blended. Now we need to bring the volumes down a bit because all of them together is a little bit loud. And that's the little volume control under each one. So you can potentially ride that with a mod wheel as well. So you kind of right click it and learn MIDI. If we make then this character really emotionally distressed and psychologically damaged, we can add in, say, some aggressiveness, but with some admiration. So you can get some really, really quite complex kind of sounds. Add too many though, I think we're probably getting to the breaking point of it with that function. It just becomes a homogeneous sort of nothingness in some ways. So I quite like just combining a couple. I think that works really well. We'll get out of stack again. I'll take you through the interface a little bit just so you can see what's going on. Now the interface is the same for all the libraries in this collection. So I'll take you through it very quickly now so you can see how it is for the pads, and this also applies for the rhythms and the multi-samples. So we have the browser here, okay, all the different articulations or emotions are there. We can unload them from RAM by using that. It's kind of hefty at 1.3 there. So not crazy, but if you did just want to use a few of them, you can really get that down to a decent amount. That will tell you how to do your key switching, which is down here on the lower keys. If you need to switch between emotions on the fly, This is your volume, them little lines underneath each one. Across the bottom we have attack, release, speed, pitch, envelope, glide, offset. Now, one of my slight bugbears about this library, and it especially affects the pads, is how the attack and release don't do enough, I don't think. I really like my pads to have, on occasion, or at least have the option to have a really long attack. Now, if let's just choose, we'll get on contempt, for example. We'll take attack down. And then if we put it right to the top, there's a bit of a slow attack there, but not enough for my liking, to be honest. And the same with the release. Turn the release down. Dead short. Now up. I'm kind of expecting a long kind of ring out, which I don't get. Now you can use the sustain pedal, of course. But then even when I'm off with the sustain pedal, we're back to quite a short release. Okay, so it's a minor grumble, but hopefully something that might tweak in the future. I don't imagine it's a huge fix. Now, speed is about how slow or fast the sample is playing back. Which works pretty well. Pitch envelope is pretty good for kind of doing weird swells and dives and stuff like that. Now, you dial this up, but you have to move the glide as well to have any effect. Move it that way and we kind of get a pitch that descends from up high, and we go the other way and we get a cool little rise. Which is nice. It's simple controls, but it does give you a decent amount of variability to create stuff that is very not conventionally pad-like in a way. Offset will tell the library where to start the sample from. So normally at the beginning, but we can start it in the middle somewhere. Let's choose a different one. Random's pretty cool. It will then vary the offset each time you hit it. Which is quite nice for getting a bit more of a naturalistic feel. It'll randomise it between the bottom of this and wherever you set it at the top there. That's got a reverse switch. And we've already been around the stretch and stack buttons there. Now if we switch on to the tabs across the top, I've got a sequencer here. We'll look at that in a bit more detail when it comes to the multi-samples. It doesn't work quite as well for pads. The effects is different to the effects down here, which we'll have a look at in a second. But this is a relatively new-ish type of engine from ADO. It's a number of their products. We can switch it on first, whack the intensity up, and configure XYs. And by doing so, getting a number of kind of cool sweepy effects. Of course, there's more than low pass available there, a whole bunch of different stuff for each one. You got 4 of those as well, so that's pretty cool. Modulation, oh, we're still in reverse, take that off. Again, quick half and double speed knobs, so does a similar thing to what this knob does on the front here. The gate is pretty cool, especially for these pads, because it gives them an element of motion. So let me just find, in fact, let's quickly go across to the next set so you can see some of the other emotions involved. let's look at love. Okay. So we've got a fairly nice sound, static though. So let's see if we can kind of, if we ramp this gate up a little bit. You've only got a few steps, but sometimes it's all it needs. So that's a handy feature to have. You can change the rating there as well to get a whole lot of different stuff going on there. You've got tune knobs here, stereo width there, and that is basically it. Apart from the effects, these have been in ADO stuff for quite a while, so we've got familiar EQs, filters, bit crushing stuff, delays. The transform thing is one of the most interesting, so this is where they've got a bunch of crazy impulse response type stuff. For those more epic type of vibes. That's Prime. Let's have a look at Titanic. So that's pretty cool if you really want to give some gravitas to the sound. I'll just play through a few more of these different sounds on the G to Z element of pads. I'll turn the mic off and just do a little bit of a kind of ad-lib demo across a few of them, just so you get a bit more of a taste for the sounds available. Pretty fun if you're kind of thinking you've got a sad scene here, but we want to have a bit more of a depthness to that sadness to be able to add in this extra stuff. I think it, you know, if you get it just right, it can really work quite nicely. So here we have some of the presets for the pads. And pretty much all the presets have the CC1, which is the mod wheel, controlling different elements of it. And this shows how you can get pretty creative with all the different layers and the amount of volume, swells, etc. you can do with it. for the next one. Floating Submarine. So we've got Amazement and Ecstasy here. And looks like the mod wheel kind of fading between them. Now we've got some of the onboard effects. Doing a bit of lifting there. Yeah, so it's just them and this kind of nice swell between the two, which I quite like. No mod wheel on this one, just a nice sound. So as you can see with the pads, there's a whole gamut of emotions you can get, and even once you've got that, loads of ability to manipulate them into something really cool. We're here now with the multi-samples, entirely different type of collection of sounds compared to the pads, especially in terms of how you play them, but the same general feel, the same emotional gravitas that the pads had. What I'll do is I'll play a few of these just in the rawest form and then combine them a little bit into something a bit more complex. This one's Acceptance. That's got a lot of twinkly loveliness going on there. Let's have a look at something a bit on the opposite end of the spectrum, and Anger. I found them best to be played in that kind of dissonant type of feel especially for ones like the Anger one. If you try playing like a conventional multi-sampled guitar, it doesn't really do what this library is supposed to be doing, which is just giving a general kind of vibe, a general atmosphere of the chosen emotion. Let's have a look at Ecstasy here. kind of does the job real nice. The same with the pads. We can stack some of these as well, so we can combine something like admiration with ecstasy. Just with ecstasy is here, admiration added. So the stacking works real nice. We can add a little bit of darkness to that and add in something like a bit of disgust. Maybe a bit less disgust. Bring that down a little, just so we get a little blend of that distortion. Very different vibe, of course, but you know, you can blend these as you see fit and get some really cool different combinations going on. I use the sustain pedal quite a lot on most of that playing. The release is not quite long enough to kind of be able to play without doing so, and the samples get a little bit separated, so having the sustain pedal playing some stuff works a treat. In a different move to the pads, the stretch button is not needed, so we have a chaos button here. Chaos basically does just what it says on the tin. We go to annoyance, let's click chaos there. It randomizes a whole bunch of stuff. It's really good for those times when you're kind of thinking, I need some weird sound. There you go. Reverse is probably a bit too long to work there. The sample's a bit too long, should I say. Let's click another one. And we'll have a little look at the next set here. Taking us from grief all the way to vigilance. Let's see what remorse is like. That's real nice. It's one of my favourite sounds I've discovered so far. Now, this is a good point to have a quick look at the sequencer, which doesn't work as much for the pads and the rhythms, but does work really well for this type of stuff. We can kind of just play a simple. Does that kind of ARP thing. You can change the number of steps if you want some kind of odder rhythms. And you can change the patterns as much as you like as well. The zigzagging down and up. default's quite a mad swing, so not sure why it does that, but it sounds cool. But if you want it straighter, we can just give it that kind of thing if you like it. Handy to have. I wouldn't use it quite as much. I like to program most of my stuff like that in, but it is really handy. So again, all the controls are the same. So if you're just skipping into this video right now, if you want to see what all these mean, go back and have a look where I talked about the pads and I go through all of these different options: the sequencer, effects, modulation, and then the browser, of course. I'll just finish off playing another one. Let's have a look at something probably quite hard to get. Some of these emotions are probably quite hard to create, so hats off to 8DO and the player as well. There's a single player for coming up with so many variations of quite complex emotions. This is really cool. So let's have a quick look at pensiveness and then we'll move on to the rhythms. Really cool. I like these a lot. The way you can stack them is great, but by themselves they do sound really cool and they inspire you to play stuff that you may not have played unless you could hear that particular sound, that particular texture, and the combination of different amps, pedals, and all that type of stuff. So I think they work excellently for that type of thing. Let's have a quick look at some of the guitar multi-sample presets. This one is Computer Helicopter with CC1 doing some stuff. Under the hood there, I think we've got some stuff going on with the effects. Yeah, so CC1's riding the reverb up there, also increasing the intensity of the rotator and the expression. So it gives you a lot of playability with the mod wheel employed for those tasks. If we flick on to the next one, and delayed gratification, again with CC1 under the hood doing its magic. And there we've got, let's have a quick look. We've got some intensity changes on the delay and reverb, a little bit on the expression as well. And if you can just see on the vigilance there, it's been automated, so we get a slight increase and decrease of volume for that particular level of that patch as well. And the final one, I'll have a quick look at Driving Away. That's really nice, pulsy, bouncy type of thing we can get with that. And effects, again, there's nothing happening there. Got a lot on the expression. We've already got a load of delay dialed in as well. And again, you can slightly see the volume up and down of the Serenity there as well. To change that, you just right click and then you can assign the MIDI automation. So plenty of fun to be had with all the presets there. And finally, we're here with the rhythms, the third and final part of the emotional guitar bundle. And again, it's a similar interface. We're using the stretch function is the only main difference from the multi-samples, but that's exactly the same as what the pads are like. And 32 of them different emotions from Plutchik's wheel. Now, some of these are clearly kind of angry and downbeat ones. Others are slightly more subtle. So I'm going to choose a few of the more subtle ones on here. Apprehension, funny emotion to kind of put into a guitar tone, if you like. Let's see what we got. Kind of mechanical, industrial type of feel to it. I like that, and it's a subtle rhythm really with these, and a lot of these rhythms are like that. It's a kind of a bubbling kind of feeling of some sort of movement. Plenty of interesting sounds here, and like the pads as well, you can see that across the keyboard we have a different sound for each key, and some of them a little bit more dissonant, like this, almost atonal in some ways. And if you do want to pitch them up, the easiest, simplest way to pitch them all up at once is just using the tune at the top here. They will, of course, stretch across as well. So we tried went for Contempt. And we chose that sample, we can stretch that across. And if we try Annoyance, see quite how annoying this may be. That's the sound of a frustrated guitarist. Can't get his amp to work properly, I'm sure. really cool to combine these within one emotion. And we can, of course, stack them as well, like all the other NKIs we've been through. Worked really well, kind of doing that and offsetting the rhythms slightly to give a chaotic type of feel to it. I think that's a real charm of this rhythm library, if you like, and does dark really well. Very sound designy, I have to say. We'll try to look at something a bit prettier. Let's have a look at. In fact, let's flick on to the next set of emotions. I don't think we've had Serenity yet. Let's see how that sounds. That's the calm we were looking for. Beautiful. Quite long phrases there. It's really cool. It's definitely playing a kind of a part, which is nice. Now, definitely think these rhythms, they're almost like moving pads as opposed to rhythms. I haven't come across too many that are a bit more percussive in nature, which would have been nice. I'd have liked to have seen a bit more of that. These really, really cool, but sometimes you just want that kind of atonal, clicky type of sound. You know, done with the guitar would have sounded really cool. I'm sure they're in there somewhere, but there's not a lot of them. This is definitely on the vibe of pads with a kind of interesting movement and evolving sound. Stuff like that. It's kind of a cue starter, if you like. Just by layering up a few sounds, add a few more things on top of that. There you go. Interest, it's quite a hard emotion to express, I think. And if this starts to sound too tame for you, you can employ something. Something like that. Even some distortion. And then within what's already an evolving sound, you create an extra sort of evolution. Plenty of stuff that you can do with the gate as well. Going to sound a bit gnarly when there's another rhythm going on as well, of course. Let's take that down and have a look at surprise. Yeah, there's basically loads of great content here. Let's have a look at some of the presets. This one's just noise using CC1. Shows you how the stretch function can work pretty well. Long decay. That is a long decay. Now that's the sort of thing I was talking about, as in a real pulsy type of rhythm. It's good, I'm glad it can do it. Lovely tinkly, jingly jangly nature to that one there. The goal of this library was pretty ambitious, to encapsulate the entire range of human emotions and present each one of those to the composer using only guitar sounds, in order that they can then convey those primal instincts to the audience. That's no small feat, and it broadly achieves these aims. But sounds and emotions are so personal, not all of them are going to match. One person's ecstasy is another person's apprehension. One person's terror is another person's sadness, or maybe even fear. So to get the best from this library, I think it pays to be quite open-minded as to what each group of emotions might offer, and don't be led purely by the name. I think this is going to be really useful for any media composer across a wide range of end uses and genres, so it gets a big thumbs up for flexibility. Of course, it's limited to one single instrument, so that in itself will have some restrictions, but many of the sounds I found were not obviously guitar-y and bordered on the kind of synthetic, organic textures at times. The interface I found easily navigable with a range of options. The stack and stretch functions amplify the sheer range of sounds hugely, as does the transform impulse response engine. Not all the parameters though worked quite as expected, particularly the rather tame attack and release knobs, which is a bit of a shame. I'd have liked the rhythms to have a bit more percussive content and just be a bit more rhythmy in general. And the pads can be slightly tricky to use, as some of them are harmonic and chordal in nature, while others are simply one note. Arguably, they could have used a few less emotions, as it's quite difficult to spread emotions across 32 different categories. And some of the sounds do sound slightly similar, but having that range of choice and the amount of sounds on offer is probably a good call. Cost-wise, I think it's reasonable at the current bundle price, though the individual sets might be slightly on the high side. However, barely a week goes by without an 8DO sale, so if you're on a budget, bide your time and these will become available at a really good price at some point, I have no doubt. Overall, the experience of this library was not a huge wow moment, but I found often the most useful libraries are not like that initially. And I think it will serve well over the long term as a way to quickly inject guitar tones, have a perfect vibe into compositions. Especially for those who don't play guitar, or they lack the time or the gear to spend ages dialing in just the right amp tone and pedal settings. This library needs some serious consideration. Some people might argue it borders slightly on the gimmicky, but for me the exciting thing is how it acknowledges that emotion is not just in the notes that we play and the combinations of chords and melodies, but it's also within the inherent sound characteristic of the instrument we are using. And this is what this library really does so well. With 32 such emotions to play with, it goes far beyond distortion being angry or a shimmery delay equaling joy. It's way more nuanced than that. Above all, I found it really inspirational to play, as you become guided by the sounds themselves, which leads you to unexpected and exciting places. Thanks for checking out this video. I'd love to know what you think about this library. Is there something that might work for your music and in your own compositions? Comment below, share your thoughts. Please like, share and subscribe. We always love your support, and be sure to visit samplelibraryreview.com for more news, reviews and our weekly deal compressor.